Hello, dear children. Today we are going to discuss on a new chapter of your history, that is chapter number 9. The name of the topic is the making of regional cultures. Here, the main theme of the chapter is regional cultures, which we are going to discuss in this very chapter, boys. One of the commonest ways of describing people is in terms of the language they speak. So, one of the prevalent ways, of describing people is in terms of the language they used to speak. When we refer to a person as a Tamil or an Oriya, this usually means that he or she speaks Tamil or Oriya and lives in Tamil Nadu or Odisha. Boys, as in when we refer to a person as Tamil or an Oriya, this usually means that he or she speaks Tamil or Oriya and lives in Tamil Nadu or Odisha. We also tend to associate each region with distinctive kinds of food, clothes, poetry, dance, music, and painting. Here we also move to associate. Associate means that connect with poetry, dance, music, and painting. Sometimes we take these identities for granted and assume that they have existed from time immemorial. Sometimes we take these identities, here for granted and supposed to be the case that they have existed from time immemorial, means no one knows from when it started, it is not in memory. However, the frontier separating regions have evolved over time and in fact are still changing. However, you see, the frontiers means a line or border separating two countries. It's separating regions have developed gradually over time and in fact are still changing. Also, what we understand as regional cultures today are often the product of complex processes of intermixing of local traditions with ideas from other parts of the subcontinent. By the way, what we understand as regional cultures present as they are always the product of complex processes, steps taken in order to achieve a particular, and that is called complex here processes, of intermixing of local traditions with ideas from other parts of the subcontinent. Subcontinent means it is a large distinguishable part of a continent. As we will see, some traditions appear specific to some regions, others seem to be similar across regions, and yet others derive from older practices in a particular area but take a new form in other regions. Here, as we will see, some traditions, traditions means generation to generation, from one generation to another generation, which appeared specific to some regions, means clearly identified, to some regions, others looks to be similar across regions, and yet others obtained from older practices in a particular area but take a new form in other regions. It changes its form here, Now let us see the Cheras and the development of Malayalam. Cheras, it is a dynasty, boys, and the development of Malayalam. Malayalam is it is a Dravidian language spoken in Kerala. Let us begin by looking at an example of the connection between language and a region. Let us start by just looking at the example of the connection in between language and region. The Chera kingdom of Mahadayapuram was established in the 9th century. Pause, mark this one, okay? Here, when was the Chera kingdom established? If it asks, you need to say 9th century, okay? So here was what we find, the Chera kingdom of Mahadayapuram. It was established in the year 9th century in the southwestern part of the peninsula. Its location is in the southwestern part of the peninsula. Peninsula means it is a piece of land almost surrounded by water or projecting out into a body of water, part of present-day Kerala. It is likely that Malayalam was spoken in this area. Okay, it is likely that Malayalam, Dravidian language, was spoken in that particular area. The rulers introduced the Malayalam language and script in their inscriptions. Okay, so the rulers, the persons who were ruling there, introduced the Malayalam language and script in their inscriptions, in their engraving. Okay, they introduced. In fact, this is one of the earliest examples of the use of a regional language in official records in the subcontinent. See, actually, this is one of the earliest examples of the use of regional language, means one's own area's language, in official records in the subcontinent. At the same time, the Cheras also drew upon Sanskritic traditions. Okay, meanwhile, what upon? The Cheras also drew upon the traditions of Sanskrit. Okay, Sanskritic traditions means the traditions of Sanskrit. The temple theatre of Kerala, which is traced to this period, borrowed stories from the Sanskrit epics. See here the temple theatre of Kerala, which is traced, that means marked here, to this period. It takes stories from the Sanskrit epics, the holy book, okay. The first literary works in Malayalam dated to about the 12th century are directly indebted to Sanskrit. Boys, the first literary works in Malayalam dated to about the 12th century, okay. They are directly indebted. Indebted means the condition of owing money like that, okay, that is actually here indebted, but it is indebted to Sanskrit, that from Sanskrit language, okay. Interestingly enough, a 14th century text, the Lilatilakam, dealing with grammar and poetics, was composed in Manipravalam, literally diamonds and corals, referring to the two languages, Sanskrit and the regional language. Okay, so interestingly, you see, enough a 14th century text, the Lilatilakam, dealing with grammar and poetics, was composed in Manipravalam, literally diamonds and corals, referring to the two languages, okay, okay, Sanskrit and the regional language. Rulers and religious traditions, the Jagannatha cult. In other regions, regional cultures grew around religious traditions. In other regions, you see, regional cultures, it grew around religious traditions. The best example of this process is the cult of Jagannatha, literally Lord of the world, a name for Vishnu. Okay, Jagannatha is known as Vishnu also. So the best example of this process is the cult of Jagannatha. At Puri, it is there at Puri, Odisha. To date, the local tribal people make the wooden image of the deity, which suggests that the deity was originally a local god who was later identified with Vishnu. Here, to that you see the local tribal people make the wooden image, okay, the images with the help of wood of the deity. Deity means gods or goddesses, which suggests or indicates that the deity was originally a local god who was later identified with Vishnu. Okay, afterwards it identified with Vishnu. In the 12th century, one of the most important rulers of the Ganga dynasty, that is Anantavarman, decided to erect a temple for Purushottama Jagannath at Puri. So boys, in the 12th century, okay, at the time one of the most important rulers of the Ganga dynasty, okay, his name is Anantavarman. He was a ruler of Eastern Ganga dynasty, okay. So he decided to erect a temple, to set up there a temple for Purushottama Jagannatha at Puri. Subsequently, in 1230, King Anangabhima III dedicated his kingdom to the deity and proclaimed himself as the deputy of the god. So underline this one also, deputy of the god also, okay. So boys, subsequently, here that means afterwards, subsequently means afterwards, in 1230, King Angangabhima III dedicated means devoted to a task his kingdom to the deity and proclaimed means announced publicly that himself as the deputy of the god. He himself, see, he announced he is the deputy of the god. Let us see next page. As the temple gained in importance as a center of pilgrimage, its authority in social and political matters also increased. As the temple was, it gained in importance as a center of pilgrimage. Okay, pilgrimage means visit to holy places, those persons. Its authority in social and political matters also increased. All those who conquered Odisha, such as the Mughals, the Marathas, and the English East India Company, attempted to gain control over the temple. So all those who conquered means to take control of, who was taking control, okay, conquered Marathas and Odisha, such as the Mughals, the Marathas, and the English East India Company, attempted to gain control over the temple. They're supposed to gain control over that temple. They felt that this would make their rule acceptable to the local people. So here they feel that this would make their rule, okay, acceptable means able to be agreed to the local people. The Rajputs and traditions of heroism In the 19th century, the region that constitutes most of present-day Rajasthan was called Rajputana by the British. So in the 19th century, the regional and constitutional most of present-day Rajasthan was called Rajputana by the British. At the time, Rajasthan was known as Rajputana. It was called by the British. While this may suggest that this was an area that was inhabited only for mainly by Rajputs. Okay, here while this may suggest what? That this was an area, okay, where it was inhabited only or mainly by Rajputs. Sorry, boys. This is only partly true. It is not fully true, it is partially true. There are several groups who identify themselves as Rajputs in many areas of northern and central India. So what happened here? There were and there are several groups who identify themselves as Rajputs in many areas of the northern and central Asia, central India. And of course, there are several peoples other than Rajputs who live in Rajasthan. Okay, here. And of course, you see, there are several peoples other than Rajputs who live in Rajasthan also. However, the Rajputs are often recognized as contributing to the distinctive culture of Rajasthan. So here, however, the Rajput, they are not here. The Rajput are often recognized as contributing to the distinguishable, culture of Rajasthan. These cultural traditions were closely linked with the leaders and aspirations of rulers. So the cultural tradition, but they were closely linked with the ideas and aspiration of rulers. From about the 18th century, most of the present-day state of Rajasthan was ruled by various Rajput families. By the time that means most of the areas, most of the present-day state of Rajasthan was ruled there. And here was ruled by various Rajput families. Prithviraj was one such ruler. So Prithviraj, he was one of the such rulers. These rulers cherished the local of the hero who fought valiantly, often choosing death on the battlefield rather than wars. Here what we find, these rulers cherish the ideal of the hero. It shows, that thing, who fought valiantly without any courage or determination. That is called valiantly. Often choosing death on the battlefield rather than face it. Face defeat. Stories about Rajput heroes were recorded in poems and songs which were recited by specially trained minstrels. So poem, here stories about Rajput heroes, they were recorded in poems and songs which were recited by specially trained minstrels. This preserved the memories of heroes and were expected to inspire others to follow their example. Ordinary people were also attracted by these stories, which often depicted dramatic situations and a range of strong emotions, that is loyalty, friendship, anger. Did women find a place within these stories? Sometimes they figure as what we find here, as that means sometimes they figure as the cause for conflicts, as men fought with one another to either win or protect women. And sometimes it was found that the figure as the cause for argument, as men fought with one another to either win or protect women. Women are also depicted, as following their heroic husbands in both life and death. There are stories about the practice of sati or the immolation of widows on the funeral pyre of their husbands. See, women are also here represented by drawing as following their heroic husbands in both life and death. There are stories about the practice of sati or the immolation. Immolation means to kill or destroy, especially by fire, of widows on the funeral pyre, of their husbands. So those who followed the heroic ideal often had to pay for it with their lives. So here was, so those who followed the heroic ideal, they always had to pay for it, with their lives. Beyond regional frontier, the story of Qatar. Now let us see this part of the chapter. Here, apart from regional frontiers, the line or border is separating two countries. The story of Kathak. Kathak, it is North Indian classical dance. If heroic traditions can be found in different regions in different forms, the same is true of dance. If heroic tradition, it can be found in different areas, in different regions, as in different forms. The same is true of dance. Let us look at the history of one dance form, Kathak, now associated with several parts of North India. Let us now look at the history of one dance form which is known as Kathak. This Kathak now associated means it is connected with several parts of North India. The term Kathak is derived from Katha, a word used in Sanskrit, and other languages for story. The term you see, Kathak, it is derived from Katha. And meaning of Katha is a word used in Sanskrit and other languages for story. The Kathaks were originally a caste of storytellers in temples of North India who embellished their performances with gesture and songs. See, the Kathaks, they were originally actually a caste, okay, that is hereditary classes, okay, or Hindu society of storytellers in temples of North India who embellished means make more attractive their performances with gesture and songs. Gesture means with gesture and songs. Gesture means a movement part of the body. Kathak began evolving into a distinct mode of dance in the 15th and 16th centuries with the spread of Bhakti movement. Kathak, it started evolving was into a distinct mode of dance in the 15th and 16th centuries with the spread of the Bhakti movement. The legends of Radha Krishna, legends means traditional story of Radha Krishna were enacted, means make in folk plays. Folk means people in general, actually meaning of folk, okay. So enacted in folk plays called Rasalila, it is known as Rasalila, okay, which combined folk dance with the basic gestures of the Kathak storytellers. Here, which combined folk dance with the basic gesture of the Kathak storytellers. Under the Mughal emperors and their nobles, Kathak was performed in the court, where it acquired its present features and developed into a form of dance with a distinctive style. So, under the Mughal emperors, under the rule of Mughal emperors and their nobles, their Kathak was performed in the court, where it obtained its present features and developed into a form of dance with a distinctive style. Subsequently, it developed in two traditions or gharanas, one in the courts of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and the other in Lucknow, under the patronage of Wajid Ali Shah, the last Nawab of Awadh. It grew into a major art form. So here you see, under the patronage or leadership of, say, Wajid Ali Shah, the least of Nawab of Awadh, okay, it grew into a major art form. By the third quarter of the 19th century, it was firmly entrenched as a dance, okay, from not only in these two regions but in the adjoining areas of present-day Punjab, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh. Emphasis was laid on intricate and rapid footwork, elaborate costumes, as well as on the enacted of stories. Okay, elaborate means complicated. Then costume means outfit, as well as on the encasement. Encasement means passing of stories. Kathak, like several other cultural practices, was viewed with disfavor by most British administrators in the 19th and 20th century. See, Kathak, like several other cultural practices, also was viewed with disfavor means dislike by most people, most British administrators in the 19th and 20th centuries. However, it survived and continued to be performed by courtiers and was recognized as one of 6 fundamental forms of dance in the country after independence. Okay, here what happened, however, it survived, it's same. Then in command to however it see here survived and it remains continued to be performed by courtesans. Courtesans means upper class clients like judges, and was recognized as one of 6 classical forms of dance in the country after independence. So boys, let us do up to here for today. Thank you.